I'm Tenitra Batiste, and after Falcons fans' second line all up and through New Orleans, the team actually backed it up.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and people keep asking me if the Atlanta Falcons are back. I'm thinking they're back.
And I'm Jarvis Davis, and it's all about the D. Alford.
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman and Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So the Falcons offense returned to form today with some unlikely main characters in the movie. We'll download on that, and special teams is actually special again. We'll talk about it, and we'll give you guys our thoughts on that. And game balls are back. Why? Because the defense dominated on the way to getting back in the win column today. And Jarvis, it was really exciting to watch start to finish, because you saw, as you mentioned in pre-production, an offense that kind of got off to a slow start, but a defense that really settled in very quickly and kind of kept things going until the offense was able to catch up, even into that third quarter, where you think about just the third quarter, and at one point in the second half, the Saints had run 33 plays, but only netted 3 points off that. And when you look at the defense in its totality, what was different in the Falcons' ability to really shut down New Orleans' offense, their ability to score points despite New Orleans dominating in time of possession?
I mean, the Falcons defense wasn't shucking around. I mean, when you look at it, right? Because here's the thing. When you look at what they were going up against, and Tyler Shough is one of those young quarterbacks where if his first read isn't there, he doesn't know what to do. And I think that there were times where he was able to move. They were able to move the football up and down the field. But you found that once you got into the red zone, and those windows get tighter, and you have to make some very good throws, and I don't think Shough is capable of doing that. So that's why you saw this defense, get some stops, and you started to see how that interior defensive line was starting to get after it. Brandon Dorlus, hey man, welcome to the party, baby. I love what I'm seeing from him. And then Ruka Rororo got involved as well, putting the quarterback on the ground. So those are some of the things that you like to see. And I feel like coming into this game, Jeff Ulbrich understood exactly what he was going up against, and he made a game plan accordingly.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about those sightings we had of some of the Falcons on defense today. But for you, Aaron, what was different in the Falcons' ability to shut New Orleans down in terms of scoring points, despite the fact that they were dominating in time of possession?
Yeah, I think it speaks to what Jarvis was talking about. Like, it felt like they were playing with a renewed energy. How much of that is getting Divine Diablo back? How much of that is getting Mike Hughes and D. Alford back in the lineup? And both of those guys showed up in positive ways. And you sort of saw what we have seen, which is kind of a more complete version of this Falcons defense. And rather than that sort of conservative approach that Jarvis is talking about that they unfortunately had last week against Carolina, you saw them be aggressive. You saw them blitzing. You saw them, at points in the third quarter, especially playing effective bend but don't break defense, where the Saints were able to move the ball, right? The Saints basically, okay, our passing game is not working. Let's come out in the second half and let's just run the ball down the Falcons' throat. We know the Falcons' run defense has not been particularly good this season, and they were able to kind of march the ball down the field, but then, as Jarvis pointed out, when things get a little tighter in the red zone, the Falcons defense put the clamps on, got some negative plays against the Saints, and were able to get some critical stops throughout this game. And we'll talk probably special teams later, but you couple that with some missed field goals, you couple that with some penalties. That intentional grounding penalty was certainly questionable on Taysom Hill, and certainly, the refs gave the Falcons a favor. And it's like, oh, thank you, refs. Appreciate you for giving us that intentional grounding. But like those are, it's just seemed like for the most part, everything that needed to break the Falcons' way in this game defensively broke in the Falcons' favor. And then everything that the Saints needed to kind of break their way offensively did not break in their way. And the Falcons, I think, were able to take advantage of that by playing that aggressive style of defense.
Yeah, maybe things broke the Falcons' way because for once, Aaron, in the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, the inactive list of Falcons wasn't reading like the infirmary. I mean, especially when you think on the defensive side of the ball, you literally only had Josh Woods inactive, Elijah Garcia inactive, Khalid Kareem inactive. But more importantly, and Jarvis, that kind of brings me to my next point. It was who was active when we got that report yesterday, just finding out that Divine Diablo, albeit with his little cast and everything, but he would be back. And there was something about him being on that field that was very, very special for the Falcons, even if, initially it was maybe just having his presence back, but then you saw his ability to actually produce, right? Because you're looking at number of tackles, and you're looking at the fact that only D. Alford and Caden Ellis had more tackles on the day than Divine Diablo. Divine Diablo also with a tackle for loss, but he wasn't the only one we had a sighting of who was a very welcome return. There were a couple of guys, Jarvis, who had actually played in recent games, but we felt like maybe we just didn't see him play at the level we wanted to. You mentioned one of them already, Rook Ororo, also James Pierce Jr. But when you're looking at those guys, particularly in that linebacker core, and knowing that slowly but surely you're getting good things out of them and good things out of this team overall, how good was it for you to really see these guys either back and actually contributing?
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing to watch, to see Agent Zero back out there, because one thing about him, he smothers guys when he tackles them because he's 6'4", that 225, he's running, he's coming downhill, and he diagnoses plays, and that's the thing that you like, right? I remember when he made that TFL, I was like, oh, a linebacker making a tackle in the backfield? Wow, look at here. That's the type of stuff that you want. That's the type of stuff. That's the reason why Jeff Ulbrich brought him in. That's the reason why I'm about to give Terry Fontenot some kudos. That's why when he jumped out there and he assigned that man immediately, because he knew that he would be the type of guy that this Jeff Ulbrich defense needs in order to have success, right? Because those converted safety guys, those guys are excellent when it comes to chasing down running backs and putting those guys on the ground, because they have the speed to get there, and they also have the necessary size and build to put those guys on the ground when they get their arms around them. So yeah, this is what this defense looks like, when they have the pieces, especially on that second level, because we understood what Faude and when he's in the game, what he brings to the table, and it's not what this defense needs. And I think that, this is going to be something to look forward to going forward.
Yeah, speaking of, that's that versatility that Jeff Ulbrich talks about liking to see all the time, and using players, like you said, a Divine Diablo or even a Caden Ellis, who nearly led the team in tackles with 9, tackle for loss there as well. Another good day from him against his former team. But when you look, Aaron, at what this defense was able to do, especially the guys that were back because they were active again on the roster, like Deablo, but also guys like Ororo, Pierce, Dorlus, that we've said, hey, we see you guys, but we don't really see you on the field. How good was it to see them actually not just be there, but produce good things for this Falcons defense?
Yeah, it was, Jarvis and I have joked about this over the last couple of years, where it's like, oh, well, this team has a couple of injuries up front on their offensive line. The Falcons should be able to take advantage of that matchup. Yeah. And for a very long time, it was like they don't ever take advantage of those matchups. Yeah. And they were able to take advantage of having a backup left guard, having a backup right tackle in this game on a number of those plays. I know Rook's sack came against that left guard at the end of the game. I know Anyamata, I think, had a TFL as well, beating that left guard as well. And so you saw like Arnold Ebiketie and Leonard Floyd, along with James Pearson, all those guys, able to take advantage of a questionable Saints offensive line that they're trying to sort of remake and rebuild. And the Falcons were able to get 5 sacks. And, one of the knocks I've had on this defense is like they don't look as good when they're not blitzing. And you saw that throughout this game, I think, where it was like there were times where the Saints were able to get in a hurry up at times and prevent the Falcons from being as aggressive on defense as they want to. And you saw them sort of concede yards in those but don't break moments. But I think at the end of the game, especially when it was just basically, okay, we're just going to get after this quarterback with 4, everybody knows the Saints have to throw the ball to get back into this game, and our guys can pin their ears back. It was refreshing to sort of see the Falcons pass rushers go out there and win as consistently as they did and really heat up Tyler Shuck late in the game.
Yeah, the Saints definitely have some work to do on O-line with players like Ryan Ramczyk going into retirement and them trying to figure it out up front. But yeah, Jarvis, I think overall too, you got to say that you liked what you saw from Jeff Ulbrich just in terms of how he schemed everything today. And I think one of the things that impressed me too, I listened as we're talking about all of these players that made a contribution in some way, shape, or form, even the likes of Ronnie Harrison having a big play, just a lot of different players having a lot of different plays, big time plays at the right time. But you got to give a credit to Jeff Ulbrich for being able to scheme to put them in position to succeed.
And that's the whole point of this thing, right? Like the coach is supposed to put your players in a position to make plays, and that's exactly what he did today. When you think about what a guy like a D Alford, with Billy Bowman going down, having that freak accident, and walk through whatever, so or having that Achilles injury. So when you think about, hey, calling on him again, to come in and, hey man, we need you. You need to come on, step in and do what you do. Those are the type of things that a defensive coordinator really appreciates, the guys like that, right? Well, of course, James Pierce getting home, that's dope to watch. Of course, you have Jalen Walker getting home, that's I love to watch that. And you have those young guys producing for you. But when you have a veteran guy you can make a good case for him, saying, hey, man, I've been a contributor to this team and I should be starting. But, hey, that young pup came in, took your spot, but you didn't cry about it. You just hopped in when that corner opposite of A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, went down. And you stepping in for at the nickel spot that you played, and you've been productive. So when you think about having all of those guys coming in and making plays for you, you have to say that this is a well-coached unit because they're getting the job done, and to give up 3 points to your rival, your division rival, man, what can you complain about?
Yeah, because essentially you walk away, as you mentioned, with a 24-10 win. And the only reason it's really a 10-point Saints scoring is because of that quirky, fluky pick 6, but we'll talk about that.
We'll have some things to say about that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see it. I can see the commentary coming right now, Aaron. But good. Speaking of commentary, good stuff on Jeff Ulbrich today, because once again, we have said from the beginning of the season that way more often than not, he puts players in position for the opportunity to succeed. And we saw it again today, even down to, and, I don't think I realized this until today when we saw what Xavier Watts was able to do. I thought, oh, wow, I didn't realize he hadn't found his way to an interception.
Until since what week
until
2?
I think it had been since September.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that it had been that long, but yeah, good stuff from Xavier Watts to end this game this afternoon as well. But yeah, Ulbrich, good call, good strategy from Brick today.
Yeah. I think we touched upon it. You have this domino effect with Divine Diablo. It allows a lot of other players to kind of succeed. We talked about Caden Ellis. You get the best version of Caden Ellis because he's not having to do as much traditional linebacker stuff. You have better coverage on the back end, so that gives your pass rushers up front more time to get home at the quarterback. And, you have a guy that can cover running backs and tight ends basically I looked at the stat, The Falcons were number 1 in the NFL when Deablo was healthy in terms of giving up the fewest yards, receiving yards to running backs and tight ends, and they were number 31 in the NFL for the 5 games that Deablo was out of the lineup. And so if Alvin Kamara obviously exited the game pretty early, but when you're able to basically know, like, okay, well, if we can just keep Chris Olave in check on the outside at the cornerback position, they don't really have anybody else that's going to be able to beat us on a consistent level. And that allows your safeties to be more aggressive. And you saw Jesse Bates, you saw Xavier Watts, both of those guys. Watts wound up with an interception to seal it at the end, but had an opportunity to get another interception early in the game. Jesse Bates also had opportunities to get it. And again, it just speaks to when you have that sort of keystone piece in the middle of your defense with Divine Diablo, it creates this trickle effect. You mentioned Ronnie Harrison, right? Like, not instead of playing 50 snaps this week, he's only playing like 10 snaps this week, and you were able to maximize those 10 snaps, as we saw on that deflection in the red zone that got that first critical stop for the Falcons. So, I think Jeff Ulbrich, it becomes a lot easier to scheme things up when you have that sort of key piece in the middle of your defense. It's like, now I can use this guy this way, and I can use this guy this way. I don't have to be scrambling trying to cover up for issues and liabilities in the middle of my defense, as the Falcons have kind of been scrambling these last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, free good stuff. And also, Jarvis, in your words, another thing that's dope to watch, the Falcons holding the Saints to 79 yards on 28 carries, averaging just 2.8 yards a carry, because we hear about their much maligned run defense, but also no explosives in the receiving game for the Saints today. But another unit that woke up, because we talk about all 3 phases, the offense guys woke up today. We'll talk about that when we take it under further review. This episode of our Falcon Squad Show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and right here in Georgia. So if you've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, it keeps every game exciting, especially on a weekend like today, where the Hawks take care of business Saturday night in New Orleans against the Pels, and then the Falcons take care of business Sunday afternoon against the Saints. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDON NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now that's code LOCKEDON NFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Hey, Free, I had some sightings of some things that I don't think any of us have seen in a month of Sundays. Like, I don't know, 13 personnel. That seemed to be the order of the day for one Zach Robinson, and we'll talk a little bit later about how he strategized this game. But really what I loved is this. Whenever the Falcons get into the red zone or they sniff the red zone, sometimes it gets to be a really scary thing, because the thought is either they get 7 or they get nothing, because, of course, there were challenges in the kicking game. But here was a cool stat about what the Falcons did today and what they've actually been low-key doing for a while now, and that's getting a touchdown on 11 straight streaks of being in the red zone for the Falcons, with that first touchdown thanks to the pass to Kirk Cousins' BFF, his favorite target, David Sills. But for you guys, looking at what this offense was able to do, Aaron, starting with you, what was most impressive?
Yeah, it was refreshing to see an adjustment with the offense, and with like. The version of the Falcons offense that they ran today was kind of the version of the Falcons offense I thought we were going to get going into last year, which is a lot of 2 tight end sets or multiple tight end sets with Pitts and Warner being featured, under center, play action, all the things that Kirk had done throughout his NFL career. And then we got what we got, and it was just like, okay. And it worked for half a season. And so it was just kind of like, okay, they're making it work somehow. And then obviously, I don't need to rehash to all the listeners the drama and the roller coaster that the Falcons offense has been on basically since the last time they played in New Orleans last year. But like seeing this version of the offense and seeing it run efficiently was kind of the big surprise of today, where it was just like, oh, like you guys had this in your back pocket the whole time. Like, where was this for the last year and a half? You know,
5 weeks,
but like it was nice to sort of see the Falcons basically similar to what we're talking about on defense, kind of do what they wanted to do. It wasn't an issue where like you don't look at this game and you go like, oh man, the Falcons were dominant on offense. But it was just kind of like, here's what we want to do. We want to run the football. We want to dial up play action, and we want to get a couple of shots down the field. And they were able to check all of those boxes. And so even though it wasn't like, oh man, they could have easily scored like 45 points or anything like that, it was just like they were efficient, they were effective, they did exactly what they wanted to do. They drew it up and they executed it. And this is refreshing to see this from the Atlanta Falcons, because we just really haven't seen them perform that style of offense where they're executing what they're drawing up consistently like we did today.
Yeah, and you're right, Free, because everything wasn't perfect. We still saw a lack of third down efficiency when we're talking about you going 3 of 12. That's still a challenge that they're going to have to address. But on the same token, you did see them get back to some nice balance on the offensive side of the ball, being able to see them go for 55 plays and see 23 passing attempts and then see about 29 or so rushing attempts. I think that was one of the impressive things, Jarvis, because you like to see the variety. I think the word that we've been hearing the last couple of weeks about this offense was vanilla. And it was nice to see them get back to variety. And it paid off because unlike, the Saints, where we juxtapose them having an average of about 2.8 yards per carry, you saw the Falcons able to get about 4.2 yards a carry. So I like that Free called out the efficiency there for 121 yards on 29 carries. And then in the receiving game, nearly 200 yards and several explosive plays. Whereas you look on the Saints side of the ball, I know that's on defense, but not a lot of explosive plays on there. And so again, wasn't a perfect game on offense, but you definitely saw some things that you hadn't seen in a while that you knew this offense was capable of, even in the absence of a Drake London or, of course, a Michael Penix Jr.
The word that I would use for this particular offense and how they played today will be it flowed. Flowed.
Yes.
Well, that's 2 words. Flowed. It flowed. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. And because just on that a touchdown pass to Darnell Mooney specifically, you think about what formation they were in. They were in 13 personnel, if I remember correctly. And then you held the safety, right? And you were able to draw that safety. That safety was like, oh, they might actually run the ball. I believe that. And they like, nope, let me go up top, and pull that bad boy out of the stomach. And then Kirk made a doggone throw. He made the throw. It was a nice throw. He put it right where it needed to be. He didn't overthrow him, and he put it on him and threw it on the line to him, and all you saw was that safety turn around like, hey man, that's all on you, bro. That's if you don't make a play on it, hey, we beat. So when you think about it from that aspect, just the flow of the game, you having some success with the run game, so they have to respect that on both levels, right? On that second and third level, on the back end of the defense, and you're able to make a throw when you get that one-on-one coverage, because that's what you want to do in this league. And Darnell Mooney is that for this offense. That's what we expected him to do coming into the season. Obviously with the injuries and he and Michael Penix not being able to connect for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I think that to see how it played out today, and it just helps you understand, like, okay, this is what this offense is supposed to look like. So, and you have to give them kudos for it.
Yeah, you do. And Aaron, listen, we go hard in the paint when we need to, when we need to get on Kirk Cousins and when we need to get on Michael Penix Jr., but we have no problem giving them the flowers as their flowers as well. And just seeing a lot of reading the comments, because of course it was like therapy Sunday up in here last week and again Monday. So we want to talk about the good things when we have an opportunity to do so. Kirk Cousins, of course, throwing for his 290th touchdown in this game, which tied Johnny Unitas at 290 career touchdowns, for 17th in the history of the NFL for touchdown passes, and a nice solid game from Kirk Cousins. When you think about the fact that, hey, Kirk Cousins didn't even throw for 200 yards, didn't matter, because he still went 16 of 23 for 199 yards, a couple touchdowns, and kind of a wonky pick that, of course, ended up in a pick six. But at this point in the season, and knowing that you just needed to get a win, didn't matter if it was an ugly win or if it was efficient or not, just get a win. I think Kirk Cousins understood that part of the assignment.
Yeah, you mentioned it, T. Like, this offense was terrible for when Kirk was in the lineup for the 18 series that he had prior to today. They were basically, if you just like looked at the numbers, they were the worst offense in the NFL when Kirk was in the lineup, based off of how often they scored in that point. And so, for myself, I was just like, well, this is what the offense is going to be the rest of the season. We're going to have the worst offense in the league. So it's really on the defense to kind of carry the day. And then you get this performance from Kirk Cousins, and it's like, oh, okay, I like this. And then, like, what's funny about this game was, like, the Falcons go up at halftime, and we're like, okay, well, the Falcons, this is not the first time the Falcons played well in the first half and got an early lead, right? That's been a consistent through line these last couple of losses. And he's like, oh, here comes the third quarter where the woes come. Saints go on a long drive, don't get any points. Falcons go 3 and out. Saints go on a long drive, only get a field goal. So I'm just like, yes, keep running the football, Saints, because the least amount of time we spend in the third quarter, the better for the Atlanta Falcons. And then we get to the fourth quarter, and Kirk hooks up with Darnell Mooney. And, like, to me, about that score on that drive, the fact that was the drive where he had the intentional grounding, right? You had the taunting penalty on Felipe Franks that wiped out a good kickoff return from Jamal Agnew as well. And, like, we've been talking all year long, like, the Falcons can't afford to make mistakes. And then Bijan on a 2nd and 24 just takes a simple screen, and the Falcons haven't been able to execute a screen to Bijan in like a month. And it's just like, Bijan's like, okay, I'm going to put the cape on. All right, I got you guys. 32 yards, boom. And then the very next play, the Falcons dial up that shot play to Darnell Mooney for the touchdown. And it's just like, this is so beautiful to see. Like, I've never seen this from the Atlanta Falcons all year long. So it's just like, it's a wonderful thing to see, even if it's, 12 weeks too late in a lot of people's eyes. But hey, at least we got a little taste of this. So maybe we just get a little taste of Kirk Vimber before this month is out at this point in time. So kudos to you, Kirk. I did like that. It's
not Kirk Vimber. It is Kirkington. This is Kirkington right here. That sounds like a name of a documentary or something like that. Oh yeah, he's already been on one. But no, I think, I think you make a good point, Free, because, the where the Falcons are right now, they're third in the division, and of course the expectations haven't been met. But when you come out and play like this, you break that doggone stinky losing streak, and you get yourself a win, and you look like what we kind of expected you to look like, and I think that the defense has exceeded my expectations this year. Like, no one saw this coming. They're when this defense is on, they look, when they're playing like who they are, they were built to be, hey, playing with the lead, forcing teams to be one-dimensional, having to throw the football. Yeah, this defense look like it's supposed to look like. And I think that when those two things are married with this team, like, they look pretty good. And you have to give kudos to, Zach Robinson today. I know people don't want to do that, like, he came up with a game plan. Like, Drake London is out, your wide receiver one. Kyle Pitts still acting like the football has a disease and he doesn't want to touch it. It has COVID, and he doesn't, he doesn't have any hand sanitizer, so he can't touch the ball. He can't keep it in his hands for whatever reason. And you have Darnell Mooney, David Seals, Cardale Hodge. You know what? I'm going to go 13 personnel today. And we're going to try to figure this thing out. And we're going to take some shots when we get the opportunity to. We're going to have some success running the ball after having some success running the football. And that's what we're going to do. And, of course, I would like to have seen them drop 30 on the Saints today, right here in Caesars, But they got the win. They got a 2-score win. And in the fourth quarter, you had Tyler Shook trying to lead his team to victory with his arm. And we know that, well, at least I know The Saints probably think they have a quarterback, but we know that he can't do that. And I think that the Falcons showed them that, proved that today.
Yeah, I think so as well. And listen, Aaron, when I think about much maligned, and we'll talk a little bit about that on special teams as well, but arguably outside of special teams, it's been the head scratcher of how Zach Robinson has schemed on offense, the things that he hasn't pulled out of sort of the toolkit, if you will. But today you really saw some things like Jarvis mentioned, one of those plays earlier where it's like, okay, Charlie Werner, and shout out to Charlie Werner for having a great game, because he had more passes today than he had in the first 10 games of the season with those 3 catches in a row, one of which was a near explosive play. But also you saw the blocking ability kind of show itself again with Charlie Werner on that Falcons final drive before halftime that actually led to them being able to put some points on the board. But you give the credit to Zach Robinson for scheming a nice game today to put Charlie Werner, among others, in position to have success.
Yeah, you talk about that drive, in the first half where I think he had like 3 straight passes, just on checkdowns, and Charlie Werner was out here like, look, I was a all-state legend in Rabun County, Tiger, Georgia. I was a running back, I was a quarterback, I was all of the above. And he was out here being like, look, Bijan's not the only guy that could just take a simple pass and make a defender miss in the open field and turn it into a near explosive play. And I was like, hey, Charlie Werner, because it's been a disappointing year for Charlie Werner, given how steady he was last year and how integral he was to the Falcons' rushing success last year. And so to see him kind of respond to this with a game plan, it's like, okay, Charlie, you're going to get a ton of snaps. You're going to be out there a lot. You saw a healthy amount of Tegan Coriano. You saw a healthy amount of Felipe Franks, in addition to Pitts and Charlie Werner. And it was nice to see Charlie Werner. He had that big blitz pickup on the David Sills touchdown as well. So, it was nice to be like, welcome back, Charlie Werner. And of course, to show up for this of all the games, we can sit here and nitpick and be like, oh, is it too late? And blah, blah, blah. And the Falcons going to be, it doesn't matter. They beat the Saints.
They could win.
They could win 2 games the rest of the season. Exactly. And we all know which 2 we want them to be.
Yeah. And you did it, Aaron, after, to me, and sorry, Jarvis, I just wanted to say this.
No,
if you're going to go through 5 weeks of loss after loss after loss, many of which were inexplicable, this is the one game that had to be the one to reset, in my opinion. You do it not only against the Saints, but you do it on their home field. So, it didn't have to be a world beater game. To me, you just go ahead and take this dub and say, hey, this is what we needed. If they don't get to the postseason, they don't get to the postseason. But nobody can take away from the fact that at a minimum, you at least now, Jarvis, are in the win column in your own division. And at least, if nothing else, you split the season with your nemesis.
Hey, can I say something else? Can I add something to that Charlie Werner piece?
Yes.
That's what a tight end is supposed to be in this offense.
Yes.
And, that's not hard. Catch some check downs, break a few tackles, and block. You don't need a unicorn for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So for all you people, all y'all that want to, let's see if we can get if he'll take a discount and get him a contract. Well, Kyle Pitts ain't planning up for his contract. Man, that junk is out the window. Can we stop talking about him, please? I'm only bringing him up because I wanted to point out the fact that Charlie Werner is exactly what this team needs in the passing game. That's all I need you to do. Darnell Mooney is your go ball guy, your deep shot, your shot play guy. Mm-hmm. You got your wide receiver 1 and Drake London, and just throw it to him whenever you can, or as much as you possibly can. And you got Bijan coming out of the backfield. There's no need for a unicorn, especially that one, because you can't count on them. So, shout out to you, Charlie Werner, for being the example. You were the example of what a tight end is supposed to be in this offense. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Was Jarvis talking up Charlie Warner, or was he taking down the other tight end? I don't know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was giving takedown, Aaron, way more than it was giving picking up.
Like, oh yeah, Charlie Warner, you did all right too. But
Charlie Warner was exemplary. I said he was exemplary. You know what I'm saying? Like this man was showing how it was supposed to be done.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Check down Charlie, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Come on.
We're talking about a W. That's what we're talking about. But the question, guys, is whether or not special teams was a big part of that, or whether or not special teams was there despite themselves and they got the W. The Falcons did anyway. We will talk about that as well on the other side. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Now, you can pull up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, you can see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100, or if you're like me, able to take advantage of some really cool seats for a college football game recently. And the app makes it super simple, so you can see the exact view from your seat before buying. And of course, zone deals. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Download Game Time today. So, Jarvis, we saw some light at the end of the tunnel. Jamal Agnew had himself a nice kick return day. 2 returns, 74 yards, a long of 39. Not a bad day from Dylan Drummond either. 1 return for 25 yards. And then a nice day from Zane Gonzalez, 3 for 3, including a long field goal of 56 in the Falcons' 24-10 win over the Saints. But we also know that there were some kerfuffles and some head scratchers and some oh gods that happened today. But first things first, let's go to the happy place and talk about, for you, what was most impressive. It could be Agnew, it could be Gonzalez, but what was most impressive with some of the good things you saw in special teams today?
The operational piece that came over my body and my soul today when Zane Gonzalez ran out there to kick that ball right through the uprights. It was just so smooth. It was just cool. I was just chilling. I was like, oh man, he gonna hit this thing today, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, just take it in. You know what I'm saying? Just woosah. Like Zane, Zane Gonzalez, man, come on, man. Cool as a fan, baby. We so doggone. What is it called? Kind of. When it comes to kickers, especially with the Falcons, but seriously,
little triggered, a little shell shock, a
little shell shock. But like we have to acknowledge this because we don't know how long it's gonna last. Just to be honest,
because you don't know if it's another 5-for-5 situation. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, exactly. And next week it'll be over. So hey, we're gonna celebrate this moment. So shout out to you, Zane. I am giving you a compliment. I'm not gonna tear down anyone else that used to be a kicker for this team. I'm going to just stay positive. Because T says she wants to stay positive. So yeah, Zane Gonzalez gave me that feeling that okay, so we at least don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. Aaron, for you, when you look at the good of what you saw in special teams today, who impressed you the most?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see, as Jarvis said, operational piece, right? With the Falcons special teams. And it was nice to see another team struggling on special teams, right? Having some of the struggles that we have experienced here in Atlanta, see the Saints missing kicks and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, that's what it looks like when the shoe is on the other foot. Oh, that looks nice. Ooh, I like that. Oh, ooh, this is just cozy feeling, just to not have to worry about, missed kicks and kerfuffles and all this stuff. And meanwhile, the other team is really struggling in that regard. So, it was, as you said, T, it wasn't perfect by any means on special teams, but because the bar was so low, it was just like, okay, like 75% good. Okay, we will take that. That feels like 75% more than what we have been getting in a lot of these games as of late. And so like that's what, and it's like if they can continue to build to this, are we going to see that good special teams that we thought we were growing accustomed to, that we haven't consistently seen over the last 2 seasons? Will we see that finally over these last 6 games? Or, is it going to continue to be the roller coaster and this is just the sort of peak before we go back into a valley? So those are the questions. Obviously, we won't know until the games are actually played, but it's just nice to be, be on the roller coaster with your hands up, no hands, enjoying the ride, as opposed to, being scared for your life as we have been for most of the season.
Yeah. And Jarvis, when I think about that, we understand that, hey, if there's some things to call out, we'll call them out. So I know there were some things for you today off special teams where you really said it really made you cringe. And again, thankfully, those kerfuffles, those goof-offs that you're about to talk about and that Aaron's about to talk about did not impact the game, but still it was a little bit frustrating and a little bit of a head scratcher because you're like, dang. When is that phase going to kind of come together, as well as you saw the other 2 phases come together today?
I think the penalty with Felipe Franks, it's just stupid stuff. Like that's just dumb. You don't get in those in moments like that. You have to keep a level head. And I even saw that saw Raheem Morris getting on Felipe Franks. He was late. He was giving it to him. He was laid into him a little bit. And no, not a little bit, a lot bit. And he has to do those things. You have to call these players out for dumb stuff like that, because your special teams had already kind of given up. They had the big return, and it was like, oh, here we go again. This happens every game. They figure out, the opposing team figures out a way to get a certain return, and they're able to, dang near break that bad boy if somebody don't make a game-saving tackle. So, for a guy like Felipe Franks, who has been a special team dog, he has been a guy for you. You can't be the one to have that penalty that could potentially hurt your team. But, I think that I'm glad that we're talking about blips instead of entire games, because we know that Marquise Williams might be a little shaky, as to whether or not he's going to be here at the end of the season. And I think he needs games like this where we're talking about that 75% that Free is talking about, that they are, being consistent and being one of those units that the Falcons can say at the end of the game that, okay, yeah, we won special teams today. Because like I said, I can always go back to my saying, if you win 2 out of 3, offense, defense, special teams, more than likely you're going to get the job.
Yeah, exactly. And Jarvis, since you just kind of mentioned Marquise, what do you think? And of course, we know special teams maybe of all 3 phases, maybe the one where it's even more so on players to execute. But that said, when we look at Marquise Williams and what he was able to do today, do you feel like maybe sort of kind of we saw an indication that his squad, I don't want to say back, so maybe we'll just use back.
No, I need to see more than one game, T. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, you still had that blip. You still had that big boy return. That could have been a game changer. You never know. So, like, my standards for him are what he set in the previous years, being a special teams coordinator through 2 coaches. So when you think about it from that aspect, I have to judge him based off of that. Yeah. What do you need to do to get back to where you were? Because where you were was a unit that you didn't have to worry about. Yeah. We didn't have to worry about the special teams because you had the kicker, you had Bradley Penn, you had Younghoe Koo, and the coverage units were always at least in the middle of the pack or at the top of the league, and from a coverage standpoint. So it's going to take a little bit more than one game. I'm talking about, like, for the rest of the season, I need to see this consistency in order for him to return as a coordinator for next year.
Yeah, because you did see Free a better day from the special teams in terms of kick returns for the Saints, with them having the same number of kick returns as the Falcons with 3, but netting about 24 more yards and having a few more explosives in that space. But that said, what would you say about Marquise? Are you kind of sitting with Jarvis and saying, hey, I can't even say back, definitely can't say back. It's more for you of a wait and see, because it's just a small sample size. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a wait and see. Again, it's as I said earlier, like, doing this against the Saints, we're going to count it twice, right?
Sure.
But like, I need to see it for more than one game before I'm ready to be like, okay, we're all the way back. And you mentioned Felipe Franks. I believe he was the one who was out of his lane on that big kick return that the Falcons did give up. And so tough day for Felipe at the office. We need him to lock in, because as Jarvis pointed out a couple weeks ago, he and Mike Ford and some of these other guys are really here because of their special teams value, not because of what they're bringing to the table. I know Felipe had that critical quarterback sneak in this game. And of course, the Falcons wouldn't have won the game without that critical quarterback sneak. But besides that, Felipe, it's like, if you're not doing your job, then why are you here? Because if you're not doing it on special teams, you ain't doing
one job.
Right. So, I think overall still need to see more, but certainly when you have this type of performance from that unit against this team, the Saints, it feels, worth more than a normal game.
Yeah. And remind me, guys, what was that play where, like you said, there were just enough plays on the Falcons side of the ball, special teams wise, to kind of offset some of those goof-offs. I think it was Mike Ford Jr., I want to say, I can't remember which quarter it was, but he had himself like this nice little play. And it's like, hey, all you need to do is replicate that. You just need to see more of that from more players. And then, like you guys said, maybe we can talk about special teams being back. But what is back? Game balls, and we're going to give them away on the other side. Got to tell the everydayers that it's been so long since we were able to do this that when Jarvis mentioned it, Aaron and I went, what? Do what? Give away what?
What that? What that?
Exactly.
You should have heard them. They said, what that?
We were literally sitting here like, what language is Jarvis speaking? So it is with extreme pleasure when you go through what we have been through as a media team covering the Falcons these last 5 weeks. It is our extreme pleasure to be able to give away game balls once again for the Atlanta Falcons 24-10 win over the New Orleans Saints earlier today. So where do we start with giving out the game balls, Jarvis? On offense.
Okay. So has to be Darnell Mooney, right? I have to give a game ball to him, because when you think about his role in this offense, and for Drake London to not be in this offense, and him being able to still establish himself in that role, because ideally you draw the better coverage guy with Drake London, and he gets matched up with the second best corner on the team, or what have you, and you look at it from that standpoint, and he still was able to have success in a one-on-one matchup and get into the end zone. I'll say it again, I've been saying it all show, this is what his role is supposed to look like. I talked about Charlie Warner being the tight end for this team.
Yeah.
And I'm talking the free. Why you laughing at me, dog?
Were you worried Kyle was you the way you were looking back there?
Oh no, man, he might pop up, dog. Like, it's a little different around here in these in the Caesars Superdome, whatever you call this doggone place. But I think I have to give it to Darnell Mooney, because like to see him in that role without your wide receiver one, that says something.
Yeah. And and I think, like you said, we're gonna go ahead and keep it real and say it was good to have a Darnell Mooney sighting. 3 receptions only, so not a lot in terms of the quantity, but definitely more in terms of the quantity, because in getting those 74 yards, and that was 3 receptions on 3 targets, by the way, got an explosive, the longest being 49 yards, and maybe more.
That matters a lot.
Yes, exactly. And maybe more importantly, being able to capitalize on it with a touchdown. So yeah, Free, I think that Jarvis makes a great call on his game ball on the offensive side. What about you? Who gets your ball on offense?
Yeah, I'm gonna give my game ball to Zach Robinson, but yeah, I think the comment on Darnell Mooney is like in previous games when he got 3 catches, we had to throw him the ball like 12 times just to get him 3 catches, But I'm gonna give it to Zach Robinson because it's like, Zach, what's this? You had this in here the whole time? Like, oh my, like, oh, an adjustment, right? And so, like, there's gonna be a lot of controversy this week because people are gonna be like, why couldn't we do this under Michael Penix? And it's been stated a number of times if people aren't aware of it. Like, the main reason why the Falcons didn't go under center with Michael Penix was because they didn't think he was comfortable with it, because that's not something he did a lot in college. That's obviously not something that he did a lot in his rookie season. And the Falcons were like, we're not going to do that much. And it was something that Kirk Cousins did quite a bit until he got to Atlanta, and then the Falcons switched it up on him. And so, for Zach to basically say, all right, let's just run a different version of this offense. We need a win. We need to make this adjustment. And like we said earlier, like, it was effective. It wasn't perfect, but it was effective at, checking the boxes that the Falcons were looking to check in this game. You got to give kudos to Zach Robinson. Again, there haven't been too many of these games. There's been a handful of games where I think he's called really good games. The last 2 wins I thought the Falcons had against Washington and Buffalo were well-called games from Zach Robinson. And all of a sudden he calls another good game and the Falcons win. It's like, I wonder if there's like a correlation there, where it's like, if your offensive coordinator is scheming things up well, it's almost as if this team plays well. It's weird. It's weird how that tends to seem to happen so much this year. So I'm going to give Zach, some love, right? I don't know how many more games I'm going to get like this from Zach Robinson. So, take that victory lap. Do donuts.
Take that.
A lot, out here at the Little Caesar Superdome. So, do your thing, Zach, this week.
Yeah, and you got to give a world of credit to Zach, like you said, for being able to scheme. I thought that he was able to utilize, like we talked about, everybody, finding ways to utilize Darnell Mooney more effectively. And maybe that's just the chemistry and his ability to kind of work that with Kirk Cousins, but also even in the run game. I liked the way he used Tyler Algier, particularly today. I felt like I hadn't really seen him use Algier the right way in a few weeks, but I did like that. But I will give my game ball to one Kirk Cousins, Kirkington, Kirktober, Kirk Bemmer. I just really don't care what you call him. All I care about is calling him a winner as of today, because that is what the Falcons were so in need of. I don't care where you line him up. I don't care if you put him under center and you want to go back and forth about where MPX lines up whenever Zach Robinson schemes. The bottom line is this team was in desperate need of a win. And the bottom line was they were in desperate need of Kirk Cousins doing his part to get him there, because he's who we're going to see for the rest of the season. And I think for fans and even for us who cover them on a weekly basis, to buy into the possibility of at least ending the season on a high note, I'm not talking about a postseason high note, just a high note period that shows us that what this team is capable of. For me, that was important for Kirk to be a part of setting the tone today. What about on the defensive side, Jarvis? Who gets the game ball?
Yes. This is what I've been waiting on, T. My game ball goes to Mr. Brandon Dorlus, who is now the leader in sacks on this team with 4.5. And he's the leader in TFLs as well, tackles for loss, with 8. So yeah, I have to give it to Brandon Dorlus. He's a guy that I feel like they're coming into the season, he had a really good training camp, and he's been capitalizing off of it. Not like your boy Casey Washington Free. I know, what I'm saying. I know you've been
Training
trying
camp,
to root her. Yeah, huh?
Training camp superstar. Casey
Training
Washington.
camp superstar. Brandon Doyles was a training camp superstar in my eye, and you starting to see the results come with that. And I think that when you have a guy who essentially redshirted and from a draft that you got no contributions from outside of your starting quarterback for 3 games, for him to have the season that he's having right now, I have to give him kudos. Shout out to him. And I think that, a little bit of credit goes to my guy who I haven't mentioned in a long time. I got a chance to chop it up with him before the game, Nate Ollie. That's that attacking style, defense, Jeff Ulbrich. Hey, here's what we want to do. I'm gonna bring in a guy who's gonna reinforce that to those guys every single day. Excuse me, singy. What am I talking about? GTFO. Yeah, so yeah, my game ball goes out to Brandon Dorlus. Shout out to him.
Yeah, and I like that. And don't forget, since you're giving him his flowers, don't forget to give him his flowers for his ability to get to the QB, not necessarily just for sacks, but also a couple of QB hits in his game today. What about you, Free, on the defensive side of the ball? Who gets the game ball?
I'm going to give some love to D. Alford, right? Again, just giving love to people that don't get enough love. There's just a neglectful group of individuals here in Atlanta, now in New Orleans, and they're just yearning for some love, and they just haven't been able to get it in a long time, and now they're getting it today. Again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this again, but D. Alford balled today, right? We talked about the late week injury to Billy Bowman, that Achilles injury that he suffered on Friday, and sort of D. Alford was working his way back from the concussion, cleared it, got the call up basically to be like, okay, Billy's down, it's on you, D. You're gonna do the job. And to D. Alford's credit, I thought when he stepped in for Billy Bowman for those like 3-4 games, whatever it was, when Bowman was dealing with the hamstring injury, I thought Alford played reasonably well. We saw him have a couple of impactful plays in a couple of those games. And so there was wondering, it's like, but as we got a little further along and Bowman got a little closer, you saw sort of a dip from D. Alford, and it was like, oh, okay, well, whatever mojo D. Alford had for like a 2-3 game sample may be running out. And it's like, no, he's got the mojo back. He's looking like 2023 D. Alford, who was actually a rising nickel corner in this league, rather than the 2024 version that we got that was, a falling corner in this league, literally falling too often at times, depending on the game that you were watching. And so I thought D. Alford played really well, had a number of stops in this game on third downs. That one play where he came off of his receiver to go get a stop. I can't remember which Saints receiver it was, if it was Vele or somebody else. But, he got a critical sort of third down stop there. On a couple of plays, had a couple of TFLs and some other plays. So overall, just a really good game for D. Alford. And if we can get this version of D. Alford, for the rest of the season, again, huge, devastating injury to Billy Bowman, but it does feel like, at least this secondary can maybe, at least at this one spot, kind of tread water for these next 6 games at that nickel cornerback spot if D. Alford can continue playing like this.
Yeah, and I would say I was going to actually choose D. Alford as my guy to get a game ball, but I figure I'll throw a little something in there anytime we can hear the name David Onyemata in his old stomping grounds, and he has any type of contribution up front. I think that he, along with the D-line, had a solid day as well. And Jarvis, special teams, game balls.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Zane Gonzalez, baby. Smooth, baby. Smooth. Operational piece. That's his new middle name right now. Oh no, hold on. Hold on. Let me take a step back. I'm not gonna get too excited.
And give him a nickname
just yet. Yeah, I'm gonna give him a nickname just yet. No.
Yeah.
Zane. I'm gonna call you what your mama call you. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna call him by the government. Zane Gonzalez. Game ball goes out to you, sir. Thank you for stabilizing the position. And and helping people not go crazy and gain the trust of Raheem Morris. So yeah, game ball, Zane Gonzalez.
Aaron, how about you on special teams?
Well, I'm curious. You said Zane Gonzalez, Jarvis?
Yeah, Zane, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is that the Falcons kicker? Because I just didn't know who the Falcons kicker was until last week. Is Zane Gonzalez?
They signed one. Yeah, they signed one.
Okay,
yeah.
They signed a kicker. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give my game ball to Zane Gonzalez, right? He actually earning a name, right? We're not to nickname status yet, right?
No.
But the fact that I know your name, because basically when they brought him in, I was like, man, I ain't trying to learn
it don't matter
kicker's name that's gonna get cut in 2 weeks.
He's just the kicker.
Like, no, you can be in and out the door. You can be that Abe Simpson meme where he walks in, puts the hat on, puts it back up, and walks right out the door. Like that's what I was expecting from Zane Gonzalez, and now he's making kicks, and it's like, oh, Zane, okay, all all right, this is nice. This is nice. We're working towards a nickname at a certain point. So Zane Gonzalez is my game ball.
Yeah, well, it's a trifecta because I figure, hey, I know there was 5 for 5 and then 0 for, but just like we just basked in the glory of 5 for 5 until, let's just go ahead and enjoy 3 for 3, right? And real quick before we wrap up, guys, we talked about the players we gave our game balls to. We liked what we saw in schemes and strategy from both Zach Robinson and Jeff Ulbrich, and maybe other than a little bit of a, I don't know, like a little kerfuffle or a little lapse, we'll call it, at the end of the game. We'll go ahead and get some flowers, Jarvis. We'll go ahead and get some flowers, Aaron, to Raheem Morris.
Yeah. You survived a week. You survived another week. So yeah,
they found a way. They found a way to win.
They figured it out. They figured it out. He figured it out.
Exactly. Because that's what leaders do, as he so reminded
Good leaders, T. Good leaders figure it out. Yes.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what he reminded us of just last week. Well, we appreciate our everydayers for making the Falcon Squad Show the first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked on Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, for more post-game coverage just around the corner. The Falcon Squad Show and Locked on Falcons are part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day. We'll see you next time.